about the dream of playing AFL. What was your experience finding out that, shit, all of a sudden I'm going to play for North Melbourne? Did you, obviously the way you got drafted, how was it? Can you remember the day? Do you remember who you told, the first phone call, things like that?
Yeah, I remember it really well, because the night before Adelaide Pros rang me and said, we're going to take you tomorrow because we've monitored you, you've been in Adelaide. North Melbourne flew me down for a medical, which is pretty daunting because I didn't really like Melbourne, even though I'd been there a couple of times with Thunder. I didn't like Melbourne, the hustle and bustle, and big city, and everyone's running 100 mile an hour. And we were walking in the city, me and Neville Stibbard, who was recruiting manager, and I was just looking up at buildings and just being a kid from the bush and looking around, and I lost him in the crowd. He'd walk 200 metres ahead of me just because his mindset was just to get to where he was going.
Pretty easy to lose in the crowd, matey.
Well, yeah, I'm not that big, but look, I just went, was a little bit sort of daunted about going to Melbourne, and then when Adelaide rang me, I thought, oh, this is awesome, going back down to Adelaide. I've spent 2 years there, got some mates, know some people, already made connections. The next morning I got up to watch there wasn't the national draft, so there wasn't the whole fan thing about, just a big draft and everyone excited. Yeah, it was just you just had to watch it on the computer. But living out where we were, 25 k's out of Alice, there was no internet. Mum and Dad didn't have internet, and the one auntie that did have internet on the block wasn't home, so I was driving around to all my aunties' houses trying to find someone who's got some internet so I can get on there. And little did I know, I probably should have just stayed near the phone, because that's where they were going to ring. So by the time I'd come back, the draft had finished, and my older brother Joel was sitting on the couch, and it was really, really blunt sort of, oh, you got drafted with the Kangaroos. There was no congratulations. Younger brothers and sisters weren't, sort of jumping out of joy. They just all sat there. My first thought was, oh shit, going to Melbourne. Pretty daunting, And I hated North Melbourne as a kid, because they've had some great. They were a good team. Wayne Carey, Glenn Archer, Scholl, and McKernan, all these blokes. Brent Harvey. So I didn't like them because they'd beaten Brisbane a couple of times in finals. So I was thinking, oh, here we go. And I remember my mum was in hospital at the time with cancer, and we went up to the hospital, and that's when the real eruption went. As I walked down the corridor, Nana's there, all the uncles and aunties there, and older sister, and then Dad's there, and everyone got really excited then. That's when it started sinking in that, it's a great accomplishment, but then when you get the photo for the Advocate the next day, and you got the Kangaroos Guernsey on, all the families around, and then it sort of starts to take off, then people in town start to get to know, and it was only sort of 2 days later I was out of there going to Melbourne, which was hard because Mum was sick at the time, and I'd been back in Alice for a couple of months. I wasn't going back to the Sandful. I was happy to stay in Alice and play with Pioneers, and now my world just got turned sort of not upside down, but flipped the other way. I've sort of given up that semi-professional footy dream and wanted to be back home, but now I've been sort of thrown into. And I always say it, I say to Dad all the time, if North Melbourne had rang me the morning of the draft and said, do you want us to take you? I probably would have said no. Because my mindset was to stay home and be by Mum's side and spend the last, I think, she only really got another 2 months out of life after that. So I was thinking if she's going to be around for another year or two, I wanted to be home and play footy there, and try and win a premiership Pioneers for her and win another Minian and whatever. But so it's a funny story. If they had rang me, I probably would have said, so I'm happy here.
It would have been a real mixed emotions for you, I suppose, having your mother being sick, and then finding out that you've essentially achieved a dream, maybe not for yourself, but a dream that so many people in Alice would have been telling you to chase. So it would have been such a tough time for you, I suppose.
Oh yeah, and I think a little bit too was the embarrassing thing for me was to if I'd have thrown it away, how many other kids in the territory would jump at that opportunity? And I'm learning that more and more now, in later in life, and being a part of some kids really trying hard to get there. I'm watching Mally Roses come through, Joel Jeffrey now, but watching Jared Stokes, the way he was trained, Michael Hagan, these blokes, they gave it everything to get themselves on a list, and here I was 10 years earlier, or 12 years earlier, ready to sort of throw it away, all because it would have been a fair enough reason to stay home, but I think when I got there, I realised that it wasn't just about me making it anymore, it was about the family making it, and also putting a map for Alice Springs, because Darryl's done it, Richie Cole's done it before me, Lockie Ross, and the McAdam brothers, Tommy Logan. So it was just that next, and Darryl rang me and said, now you got the baton, mate. Because at the time it was only me and Tommy Logan were on the list, two lads from Alice. So, you know.
Getting a phone call off Daryl, someone who you admire, is obviously
Yeah,
very important. It's not
and
just anybody.
Yeah, and his thing was, he always said to me, mate, he always said bricks and mortar. And at the time I was like, what the hell is bricks and mortar? And he said, he goes, use the AFL to buy as many houses, because that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. You set yourself up for it. Yeah, and that was great advice he gave me. There was nothing about do this and do that and be professional and, you know, and work hard. And all he said was just work, you know, get yourself in the game, play, and bricks and mortar.
Yeah,
That's all you think about.